Hey, what's up everybody? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today we're going to talk about the Meze Audio 105 AER, which is only $400, and it shares a lot more in common with the 109 Pro than I think some people were expecting. So I am going to make some comparisons to the 109 Pro, and I will be talking about the Focal Helix and the Headphone Ananda Nano, because I think in this price range it's important to consider models like that. And I know there's a ton of different ones to consider as well. I am working on an open back roundup that's going to come soon. But that video is turning up to be like 44 to 46 headphones. So I'm going to keep this within reason and respect your time. And the primary focus, the star of the day today, is the 105 AER. Now, this was sent to me for review by Meze Audio. It will not affect what I say about it, but I always want to disclose that. I do have a generic affiliate link with Meze Audio. It's part of like a tracking campaign, so they know where clicks come from. You're welcome to purchase this wherever you like. If you decide on it, I'm not incentivized in any way to sell this. I like doing this because it's a hobby of mine. I just honestly just enjoy audio and I like talking about it, so I consider this a pretty lucky job to have. As far as what's included in the box, you get a nice travel case, and this is a hard pouch, but it's kind of a tougher, scratchier material. It's going to be durable, and I think it'll handle scuffs well. And just to kind of show you the difference, this is what the 109 Pro comes with. It's a nicer case on the 109 Pro. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but that's literally double the price. So I think that's to be expected. Now, funny enough, the cable difference is similar as well. You have this like Kevlar cable, and it's basically a little bit scratchier, kind of like a shoelace feel. And there's rubber on the end of it for what leads into the headphone, which kind of helps with microphonics. And then you still get a 1/4-inch adapter included. So that's to be expected as well. Inside, you get a little pouch for the cable if you want to roll it up. On the 109 Pro, the cables are TPU. It's like a rubber coating, and that's if you don't upgrade to any of their more premium cables. As far as basic specs go, let's talk about the design and the driver. So this is still a 50mm driver. It has a 42 ohm impedance and a sensitivity of 112 decibels. In short, it's really easy to drive. You can plug this into anything. If you are playing on console and you want to play with the 105 AER, for gaming, then you can plug it directly into a controller and it'll still get plenty loud. You can even run this off a $10 Apple dongle and be on your merry way. Of course, more power is going to give you a little bit more overhead and potentially some better sound quality. It really just depends on the amp, but you don't have to buy an expensive amp to get some great enjoyment out of these. Now, the chassis design is awesome. This is signature Meze Audio, and you have the 105 AER on the top. And AER is Romanian for air. They wanted this to have a very open sounding presentation, not only in frequency response, but when you wear it, they don't want it to feel like a muffled, closed off closet type sound. So it is very open. I don't think it's as open as something like a Meze or a Headphone Ananda Nano. You know, the big planar magnetic drivers seem to be even more passive, but considering this is a dynamic, this is pretty good. You know, it's fairly open. As far as the design goes, you know what? And I have the 109 Pro, so I will be making references to this later. But when you look at the ear cup design, you do have a very different look. The 109 Pro has more flashy coloring, if you will, with this like copperish bronze look. And you get the really nice wood cups and this amazing spindle design. I love the back cup design on the 109 Pro. I don't mind the 105 AER, and honestly, that's going to just come down to personal preference. I still think this looks really nice, and you still get these amazing velour pads. The pads on the 109 Pro seem to be just a little bit thicker, at least visually. I don't know if it's the same thing and mine just happens to be thinner, but at least the difference between the two. The 105 AER is slightly more shallow. The other thing I want to point out is you get an open baffle on the 109 Pro, so you can see that gorgeous driver in there, and of course the bronze Meze Audio baffle, and then here it's more of like a screen, if you will, like an acoustic screen. It protects the driver. I don't think it's a big deal because at this price, this is much more normal and much more to be expected, and when you're wearing it, you're not going to see that anyway. Now, when you do put it on, the comfort is just absolutely incredible. I mean, Meze Audio has always been very comfortable, whether you buy the 99 Classics all the way up into the Empyrean, the Lyric 2s that I have and still use, or even the Elites. This is a self-adjusting headband. There's no things you have to play with to dial it in where it kind of like clicks into place. And one thing nice is it's weighted well, so you don't feel like an immense amount of tension. You're not fighting it to put it down. So they did tune this well for the weight of the headphone, and that was a little bit of a concern because I didn't know how big of a spring difference it would be considering these cups are a little bit lighter. This headphone weighs just over 300 grams and it uses a polycarbonate ABS plastic instead of wood. It's still extremely durable, and everything with Meze Audio is self-serviceable. All of this stuff is screws. There's no glue. You can replace damn near everything on it, and they want this to feel like a more timeless investment, which I really appreciate because I don't believe in getting products with the assumption that in a year or two, you're just going to throw them away. So I like that they approach that, and I think that it has a little more personal experience to a headphone, especially if you own it for years and you end up fixing it yourself later, or, you know, replacing the pad, stuff like that. So they are obviously very easily removable. Now, on the note of comfort, these are really comfortable. I alluded to that briefly, but I can wear these for a very long period of time. This material, this type of velour, I love this fabric. It's very breathable. It does get a little bit warmer, any AirPad's going to, but it's the right balance for me. I feel like it's creating a good consistent seal. The cups aren't so large where I have any odd pressure points. And even though this doesn't have like a rotating cup design, this system here allows the cups to kind of rotate. You can see a little bit of movement in all directions. So it conforms to your head just fine, and because the pads are so incredibly plush, lighter clamp force, you can wear glasses with these, and this is going to fit most heads really without any issue. Now, before I get into sound quality, I did want to show the cables real quick because I mentioned this comes with the Kevlar cable. Now, Meze Audio, on some of their models, the 3.5 millimeter terminal is recessed. You could see that on the 109 Pro, and even the 105 AER cable fits in there no problem at all. Now, when you look at the 105 AER, the jack is right on the end. This is important because if you ever wanted to buy your own cables, you don't have to worry about the size of the termination. I think this is a prettier design, the 109, but it's a little bit more limiting for aftermarket cables. And the new, by the way, the Meze Audio mic boom, which is great if you want to use this for gaming, it was designed to work with the 109 Pro. It works absolutely fine. And of course, that means it's going to work with the 105 AER. Now, Dekoni actually came out with a new cable system called Ensemble, and I will make a video on this at some point very soon. I've been using these a lot for A/B testing because this is just a miraculous little design. And I'm not saying this because this has any improvement in sound quality over the stock Meze cable. It doesn't in any way. Anyone that tells you it's going to be a big difference, I don't think, I think they're making it up. To themselves or to you, whatever it may be. You can see that this attaches totally fine. And the stock Meze cables are oxygen-free copper. That's why I don't feel like you're going to hear any real difference. So with this, because of this design, I can use these cables. And the way these Ensemble cables work is I can use a connection to my amp and then have a bunch of these for all the headphones I own, and then just twist and unlock and switch them. Makes it awesome for quick A/B testing without having a bunch of wires on the desk. I wish that Dekoni made this a little smaller because the 3.5, unfortunately, does not work on the 109 Pro. So if you've ever been considering something like that, it's something to consider for aftermarket cables. Again, Meze's giving you great cables in the box, so you're not doing it from a sound quality perspective. It's just if you want to customize it. Getting into sound quality, I want to start with the objective side first because it takes my opinion out of it, and it just shows you how my rig hears it. Don't use this to say this is exactly how you're going to hear it, because your hearing, your ears, ear canal are all unique, and it does affect frequency response a little bit for how we perceive it. Just consider this as a rough baseline, and you can use it against other measurements I've done. I will have a link in the description below for that. Now, when you look at the Meze Audio 105 AER, there's a lot to like with this sound profile. It's fantastic, and I think it's very flexible. And to explain that further, one, the bass elevation is slight, like the emphasis at the 80 to 100 hertz area, and how it carries over just gently into the low mids means it does sound a little bit warmer. I'm going to get into all this subjective stuff and how I hear it and perceive the sound, but this is not an overly strong bass envelope, and it's also not lacking or dry or missing any kind of bass emphasis that I think a lot of people are looking for. It doesn't sound too lean and hyper analytical, basically. Now, with that warmth, you have a nice linear mid-range, and it carries all the way up into about 1500 hertz before you have a little bit of a recess compared to the low treble, like the upper mid-range low treble, which you can see picks up nicely, but it's not too strong. What this means is it's not going to sound shouty, it's not going to sound nasally, and that is an area that some people are very sensitive to, so I'm glad it's a little bit relaxed here. Now, the pinna gain area, which is closer to 4000 hertz, it's up there. It is not fully relaxed compared to some other headphones I've tried, but it's, again, not overly bright. I think they skirt the line of detail and emphasis without being overly strong, and I want to put this into perspective. So when you look at the 109 Pro's measurements, you can see they have a very similar bass profile. The 109 Pro, at least my unit, because there is something called driver variance, you can have 10 of these and they might have slightly different frequency response. But when you look at the bass and mid-range, they're very, very similar. A lot of people are going to have a hard time picking the difference between the two purely from frequency response. And again, my 109 Pro had slightly more of a recess as you approach 2000 hertz. It wasn't by much, and again, I don't think people are going to hear much of a change until you get into the higher frequencies. The 109 Pro is a little bit more relaxed in the pin and gain region. That's this whole 3 to 5K. Essentially 4K is your pin and gain region, but everything around that is related. Now, the big difference that I heard, there's two key areas here. One is on my measurement, it shows the 6000 hertz is stronger on the 105 AER. And on the 109 Pro, there was a big recess there. When I don't think it's as big of a difference that this is showing. In fact, I think the way I heard it, it wasn't closer to 6K. I think it was closer to like high fives, like 56, 5700 hertz. The 105 Pro has a little bit more attack with like snares. Snares sound a little bit more snary, if you will. It's like a little bit more bite to it. But the 109 Pro didn't seem to have that quality, but I didn't feel like snares were sucked out or missing either. They were still present and very coherent and easy to hear. The big difference that you're going to hear between these two is the 109 Pro sounds a little bit more analytical and technical, partly because I think the upper treble is stronger. It has more of a sparkly, energetic sound to it in the high treble region, and that's where some people liked or disliked this headphone. The rest of the tuning is fantastic. Some people want less treble. Some people absolutely adore how this one presents it. Whereas the 105 AER, it's not doing that same bright, sparkly treble. It's definitely more relaxed. So again, you're going to have different opinions on who wants what. But the 105, I think, is a safer overall sound profile because of that. Now, I am going to talk about the Focal Helix in a moment here, but I just wanted to show you the frequency response of it. You can see the Helix has a little bit less emphasized bass. This is where the 105 AER has a warmer sound profile, but the Helix is much more forward in the whole 1 to 2K region. It still doesn't sound shouty to me, partly because the whole 2 to 3K isn't overly strong. It's connected really well to frequencies below it. There's definitely a more relaxed pin and gain area. You could see that at between 4 and 5K. And then the upper treble, again, this is going to vary wildly based on your hearing. But they present upper treble in a similar way. It'll just sound different because the bass isn't as warm on the Focal. So the Focal is going to sound a little bit brighter and more energetic, but it's not going to have that same warmth and depth. So now we get to talk about subjective sound quality, my favorite part, because this is where it matters. This is what you hear and what your experience is like. The 105 AER is absolutely fantastic, especially in the bass region, because it's warm, but it's not overly warm. It doesn't exhibit any kind of boxiness or thickness to the sound that makes the mix congested. So this is really important because they use the word air, the Romanian word for air. It would suck if it sounded closed off and dense, right? So to me, it's the good balance of warmth. The sub bass is there when the song's asking for it, but it's not dominating the sound in any way. If you're chasing like super deep thumpy bass, probably look at a closed back, but the Meze line is not really intended for that. More of a cozy, warmer bass presentation. There's still some good punch and tactility to it, but the bass is just a little bit softer, a little bit thumpier when you compare it to something like the Focal Helix, which has a tighter, more dynamic, punchy bass, but the depth isn't as there. It sounds a little bit leaner. And I might as well bring that out because I think as I make some references to sound profiles, these are going to come up. So I have the Headphone Ananda Nano, the Focal Helix, and then of course the 109 Pro. So bass response, like I said, I think they got it perfectly in my opinion. The mid-range is great as well because it's essentially flat with no weird heaviness or emphasis in the 500 or 800 hertz area. Nothing sounds like overly colored. The recess in the 1 to 2K region is really where it's going to change or impact your sound a lot, partly because even though vocals sound natural on the 105, they sound a little bit recessed compared to some other parts of the mix. That's also what's attributing to the warmer sound profile because the bass is elevated in comparison to it. I didn't find vocals to be colored in a way that I didn't like. I didn't find that male vocals lacked some of the deeper tones that some of them have, and on female vocals they didn't sound lispy, they didn't sound thin or overly breathy. It just sounded natural. They just weren't as forward, especially when you compare it to something like the Focal Helix, which is much more emphasized in the 1 to 2K. What happens here is there are tracks where I'm going to like the Focal Helix more. It's the same thing when you EQ something to change the sound. Sometimes the stars align and you get this amazing sound profile. The Helix is more forward with vocals, but the problem is if you listen to a vocal that is more forward, if you're listening to Depeche Mode, for example, that lead singer's voice really cuts through the mix more than a lot of other artists. And the 105 and 109 are much better at handling that type of music. However, if something's further back or softer spoken in the first place, then the Focal Helix might help bring that forward. The other thing I noticed is the Helix is better, or plays pianos better to me. If you listen to a lot of music with pianos, the Helix is just an incredible headphone for that. But depending on what your preferences are, the pianos don't have the same depth that the 105 has. So if you like the heavier sound of the lower notes of pianos, yes, they may not be as forward or distinct sounding on the 105, but there's definitely some more heft to it. It's also great with like bass guitars and things like that. When you compare it to the 109, the sound profile is very similar until you get into the mid and high treble. And what happens is, where this one is more forgiving and more relaxing, there are songs where occasionally this higher treble presentation, it sounds a little bit more technical as well. I think I alluded to that in the objective part. It's not that it's just brighter. The 109 just seems to reveal a little bit more nuances and subtle details. I don't think you're paying double the price solely for double the sound quality. You are paying more because the looks of this is just incredible. I mean, it's using real wood. Build quality is great. These are very comparable in overall durability, but part of that is the aesthetic. Again, I mentioned these open baffles. Now, this baffle not having that screen on the front might also be affecting your sound quality as well. That's a common trick a lot of audio companies use to adjust sound. But anyway, I find the 109 Pro just slightly more revealing. And when you get the right song and the treble starts dancing around the head more, it's kind of like a magic thing that I've noticed with Meze. And when I was doing my closeback guide, I used the 99 Classics in that roundup. I was talking about all the best closebacks under $1,000. That is a very unique sound profile. Those are very warm, luscious bass. And it's not designed to be neutral. It's a cozy sound. And those two have this really fun, playful treble that on the right tracks just sounds so good. And you really get sucked into the music. And the 109 Pro does that just a little bit more than the 105. However, the 105 is safer. So if you're just listening to every single genre out there and you're okay with a slightly smoother presentation, I think the 105 is going to suit a wider variety of preferences, listening preferences, and genres of music. I think the magic with the 105, again, this is in this price range at $400. You can go two different routes. There are headphones that smooth things over. Beyerdynamic is known to not play every single subtle detail, for example. But they generally can have really good tuning. There's some treble tuning differences, of course, that people will prefer, especially around 8,000 hertz. But they're a smooth over sound. And one of the advantages of a smoother sound profile and less resolving, less clear, is if you're listening to lower quality music, an older track, or just stuff that isn't mastered as well, you can still really enjoy it. When you get to something like the Fitment Ananda Nano, crazy revealing, like super sharp, analytical, precise. It can be a little metallic or electronic sounding. It doesn't sound as natural with certain tracks, but you'll hear the fingernails sliding on the strings. You hear the creaks of the piano pedal more on the Ananda Nano, but it lacks some of the subtleness and coziness that the Meze audio products have. And this kind of brings me all back to why I think this is such a great headphone, is it's balancing the resolution and technical performance that a lot of people like, that cozier, warmer bass that I think a lot of people prefer, but it's smooth enough where you can listen to everything and not be distracted by deficiencies in certain songs. There's a magic to that, and I don't think everyone should be chasing the most hyper-analytical headphone to be the most clear. Sure, there's merits to that, and if you're building your headphone collection, then yeah, spread your wings and get different sound profiles. Don't get 5 headphones that do the same thing. If you don't buy 5 to 10 headphones and you're looking for a nice, well-rounded sub $500 headphone, this is 100% on the short list for me. In terms of, I guess, tying it into gaming, because I know some people are going to ask about that, this is better for me for casual play because it's physically so comfortable. That thicker bass, the more relaxed 1 to 2K area in general. I can just play all types of games for hours, both physical comfort and listening comfort. It's not blasting me with treble, for example. The Ananda Nano is a little bit more energetic, and depending on what game you play, sometimes the explosions, the metallic ringing sounds, they can be a little bit too forward for me, and that's audibly fatiguing, from a listening level. The Focal and the AER 5000, if you're buying an open back high-end headphone purely for FPS gaming, I think the Focal Helix and the AER 5000 and even the the Sennheiser HD490 Pro. Those are a little bit better suited for FPS play. I was still super competitive with this one. I just felt like the footsteps were just a tad quieter, and that's only because the frequency response in 122K is more recessed. That's just a byproduct of frequency response, not so much driver performance. So you can always EQ that up, and these will be just as competitive as that. It's just out of the box without EQ. Now, I kind of went off script a bit with this, but I'm really passionate about this space. The sub $500 headphone space is my favorite. When you're buying $2,000 headphones, it doesn't mean it's $2,000 better sound quality. It's a very specific execution between design, comfort, and technical performance that the manufacturer wanted. You know, the Meze Lyric sounds totally different than the E3 from Dan Clark, and those are two closed back planars at $2,000, and they're both good in their own ways. It goes like this across the board. But 500 is special because I don't feel like you have to spend $2,000 to get end game sound, and there are a few headphones that really execute that well. This is a more fun listen to something than compared to the HD 6XX or 650, which has amazing timbre and things sound natural, but a lot of people are going to prefer this because this just has a little bit more energy to it, and a lot of people are craving a little bit more bass. It's a wonderful headphone. It's not going to be for everyone, and I hope this video helped you kind of understand where some things lie. But overall, I think it's an absolute home run. I think it's Meze's best headphone for the money they've ever made, followed closely by the 109 Pro, in my opinion. They're both wonderful. So with that being said, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next one. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.